Welcome to WSJE Radio, St. John's University, Sports and Hip Hop with DJ Mad Max. We have the one and only legendary Lin Shaye. Lin Shaye, how are you doing? Because now we are live
Now
officially.
it's been a very interesting time, may I
Yeah,
say. I'm doing okay. I mean, to be really 100% honest, this is totally unprecedented in my lifetime, and I miss my life. I mean, I miss doing the things I love the most, and I'm an actress because I'm a communicator, and just communicating on boom, zoom, schmoom. As much as we love all of you, it's not the same. I like going out to dinner and being with friends, and I'm an affectionate person. I like being able to give somebody a hug when so it's been really difficult. The quarantine part has been uh, very, very hard on me, to be honest. I'm finding ways to deal with it, and I find, I don't know if everybody else is kind of like this, depending on, I guess, how much work you're allowed to do, how much of your normal life you're allowed to still participate in. But I have real highs and lows. I mean, where um, in the beginning, none of us got out of our or whatever we sleep in. If we either walked around naked or we were in sweatpants. So, so anyway, and I wish all of you, I hope everybody's doing well. We're the upside is there's time for real personal evaluation. And if you were, I live by myself with my two pets, so they've sort of saved my life. But I think having a relationship right now is probably has both its good and its bad. You learn a lot about being with each other and dealing with each other's depressions and needs. So it's definitely we are not going to go back to normal. I really don't
yeah,
believe we will. I think this is a real life-changing event for everybody, and even kids. I mean,
yep,
little kids who can't be with their friends. That's going to change their social dynamic as they grow, even.
yeah.
So anyway, I didn't mean to get heavy, but hi.
Yeah, hello, welcome to the show. I know it's just unfortunate times, and the vaccine I heard fell through. I don't think we're going to get one until maybe a couple years.
I agree. I really do. I think we have to learn to live comfortably and safely as we can. And listen, there's all kinds of theories. But anyway, I'm thrilled to do these kinds of experiences where I get to contact you guys, even if
Yep.
it's not in person. And I'm ready for action. Whatever you want, no questions off the table. I'm happy to answer anything you ask me.
Before I get into the new movie, The Call, I want to get into what was like growing up in Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit is I'm old, so so Detroit was very different when I was growing up, I think, as well. I was from a nice sort of a middle class, upper middle class family, which I'm grateful for. Although as a child you don't think about that or even recognize putting categories on how you live. But I had a very stable mom and dad who I really loved and had a good relationship with both of them. And I went to the same school, kindergarten through 8, and then 9 through 12, and then I went to University of Michigan. So it was a very stable childhood and growth period. And Detroit itself, Detroit's a great city, and we lived, it wasn't the suburbs yet. There later it became suburbs, but we lived in a residential area near actually U of D, the University of Detroit. So we had it's a beautiful neighborhood with big oak trees, lining the street. And downtown, the highlight of downtown was the 12th floor toy department at Hudson's department store. And the Fisher Building. These were two, as a kid, those were the two sort of places I loved to go, to be when we went into the big part of the city. And my school was great. I had, it was a very neighborhood school, and it was very low key and very comfy. I mean, high school was typical high school problems, none of the stuff that goes on that I can even recognize now. It's so complicated. There didn't seem to be, there were not a lot of Black kids in my school.
Mhm.
So I remember feeling that Black kids were sort of a rarity, but it wasn't about them against me against them, or there was no racial tension.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, hey, you know, Charlie Latimer. I'll never forget that guy. He was the singer. You know, he was the black doo-wops guy in Mumford, at Mumford High School where I went. And we all, you know, so there was a difference we felt, but it was not at all there was none of this me against you business happening. It really wasn't. It was classic conflict of, you know, cliques of kids and the popular kids and the kids that were, I was sort of the unpopular. I was not very popular.
That's usually how it is. The most successful people are always the most unpopular, and then they grow into this big, just inspiring story.
I guess on some level, because you're sort of left more with yourself. And I always loved being in plays. I mean, that was where that all started. That was a place for me to tell my personal truth as a kid. And I suppose those are early beginnings of, because I never thought about being an actress. I never did. It just didn't. I like pretending to be other people, though, because that was safe. You know, that's your safe place. And I think we still sort of fall into those categories some of the time. We all put on different mantles to protect ourselves, you know, from something we may are afraid of, or we feel we're not being justly seen as who we are. So my experience was pretty comfy, and but I always enjoyed pretending to be somebody else.
Who were your favorite actresses growing up that inspired you?
Annette Funicello.
Mm-hmm.
You probably don't even know who she was. She was, the Mickey Mouse Club was a big deal when I was growing up. That's crazy when I think about it. But those kids, Annette was the beautiful, very developed girl on the Mickey Mouse Club, and she was sort of everybody's favorite. In terms of actresses, I didn't think about it like that. I don't think I had a favorite actress. I liked movies, but television was just getting going. So it was more, I think I was more involved with TV shows and storytelling. There were, I don't know exactly how old, I was in high school, I think, or at least in like 7th, 8th grade. There were some wonderful network television shows that were live television. It wasn't, nothing was taped, or they didn't even know what tape was at that point.
Yeah.
God, I really am old. Oh, well. Oh, well, it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
But in terms of the name of an actress that I could think of, it's funny that Annette Funicello came into my head, because everybody kind of all girls kind of wanted to be her. The boys all loved her. And she was, you know, she had big boobs for being like a 14-year-old. And, you know, I remember kind of going, okay, you know, it's like, so, but those were that was like a gang of kids, the Mickey Mouse Club in particular, that I kind of grew up with. And it was mostly TV, not so much film.
What were the most important things that you learned at your time on Broadway that would help you out with the rest of your career in acting?
On Broadway? Oh, well, that was later, because I did live in New York.
Yeah.
I loved stage. I mean, I didn't even think about film at all, literally. I graduated from University of Michigan. I was an art history major, and but always found myself looking to see if there was a play I could be in. But I was not a theater major. You know, there was a great theater department at U of M, actually, a terrific theater department. But it didn't occur to me to do that. I mean, I thought, okay, I'll, you know, work. I don't know. I loved art history. It was fun. And plus you get to sit in the dark for, you know, an hour and a half with slides in lecture halls rather than, you know, that was fun. I mean, and art history was really actually a wonderful kind of course to educate you about the world, you know, through art. So after Michigan, I did move to New York, and I ended up going to theater school at Columbia. I got a master's actually in theater from Columbia, because I got my first job at the Registrar's Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, in the Registrar's office after I graduated. I hated it. And I thought, well, I got to get to be in a play. So I ended up moving to New York and getting into Columbia University's brand new theater department program. And from there, it was sort of segueing to theater. It wasn't so much about Broadway. It was more, there was a lot of off and off Broadway getting started at that time. This was like the early mid 70s and early to mid 70s. And so, but theater in itself was, I was very involved. We were always reading new plays. We were always, I hosted a little reading group at my tiny apartment on Perry Street, you know, where we would come and read each other's material. We were all kind of writing, and it was a very, very exciting time artistically, when I think back, because we were all hungry for that, and we were all creating our own world, basically. So places like the Manhattan Theater Club, the Chelsea Theater Center, Lincoln Center, the WPA, there are all these theaters that now are big. Manhattan Theater Club are huge, big kind of off-Broadway, Broadway theaters. They were just starting out. And we were the ones, we were the group that would go and put on our shows, or I would do workshops and stuff. So segueing to Broadway, although there certainly was always the allure of Broadway, you know, I mean, Broadway is Broadway.
Yeah.
And I'm not a singer dancer, unfortunately. You don't really, I'm not terrible, but I'm really not, I'm not Broadway caliber. And they sometimes would tell me not to mouth, they would tell me to mouth the words, don't sing, because I'd always be a little bit off key or got the word wrong or whatever. But, and most of the shows were at that point, you know, were a lot of Broadway musicals and stuff. The closest I came was a play called The Taking of Miss Janie that we did at Lincoln Center, and won the Drama Critics Circle Award, I think it was 1975. And we were on a small Broadway show. We were in a small Broadway theater. I can't remember the name of the theater, but it wasn't, it's again, not so much about, I mean, Broadway had its allure, but just doing theater was what was really the key to my artistic creations at that point. That was what I wanted to do, was be on stage. So there.
Who introduced you to horror movies, as you are the godmother of horror?
I know, isn't that crazy? I mean, that's as crazy to me as anybody. I don't, actually my brother Bob Shaye, who is my brother, started New Line Cinema in 1968 in his apartment in New York. And I lived in what we called the mole hole in the bed. He had it was a railroad apartment, and I was at Columbia in theater school, and I was living with him and his girlfriend at the time, who he's now been married to for many years. And so Bob New Line was literally started in his living room, and it was not originally a production company. It was mostly a lecture series. He would get sort of famous people who did lectures and place them at different universities all over the country. So it was basically geared toward university theater. And then they got into production, and the first horror movie I was in, I think Critters was before Nightmare on Elm Street, I think. Mm-hmm. But Bob he was a typical big brother. He would introduce me as, this is my sister Linda. She wants to be an actress. That's how he would introduce me to people. And yet he was the one in Critters, as well as Nightmare on Elm Street, which is really the first one that people think of me for, I think, were New Line projects. And Bob said to Wes Craven, when they were doing Nightmare on Elm Street, put my sister in your movie. So he pretended he didn't say that, but he did. And I'm forever grateful. So that was how I met Wes. And that was my first, I didn't think about it as being a horror film though. For me, it was just about a part. And who is this teacher? And I studied, I was very fortunate. When I lived in New York, I studied with Uta Hagen, Stella Adler, and Lee Strasberg. Those were my three teachers, who are the three greats, really. Sandy Meisner might be the fourth, and I never did work with him. But so my approach to character was, I didn't care what genre it was. It was like, what did that character eat for breakfast? You know, how did she, you know, does she have kids? Does she not have kids? You know, is she a mean teacher or is she a nice teacher? How does she relate to her class? You know, those are still actors' questions that I always asked myself that had nothing to do with genre. and to this day, that's the truth. You know, I don't really, no one is more surprised in a way than me that that sort of blew up like that. Uh, and I'm forever grateful. And I like a good horror film because I
Yeah.
think fear is a very powerful emotion to explore in art, you know, in any form of art. So I can say thank you to Bob, my brother.
I didn't even realize that because I usually look at the end credits and I didn't even put two and two together until you told me.
Yeah, yeah. And Bob is he's still doing stuff. He's not with New Line anymore. That has a whole long story of its own. But it was one of the most successful independent film companies ever, and they spawned incredible talent. Jim Carrey, Cameron Diaz. I mean, goes on and on and on of Lord of the Rings. That whole trilogy was New Line. Uh, Bob is really, really smart in terms of understanding sort of that thing between the world and art and how that affects people and what people are attracted to. And I think he capitalized on that with the early parts of New Line and brought us fantastic films.
What was it like working with Wes Craven on that film?
Great. Wes, we all still miss Wes.
Yeah.
Wes was one of a gentle giant with a very dark heart. But really one of the kindest men I really have ever met, at least as I knew him. I mean, I didn't, you know, I only knew him as a director, obviously, and friend of Bob's, but he had this sort of cherubic, is that the right word? Kind of angelic thing that was always a little askew. I remember he'd get really flushed when something was affecting him. He would really like a kid, like his cheeks would get really red, and he would you could see him laughing really hard inside himself, you know, but he never really laughed out loud that I ever really heard. A real great listener and a terrific mind. I mean, he was a really brilliant guy and the sweetest guy ever. I mean, ever. He was that in my experience. I mean, he was just kind, funny, warm, loving, and smart.
Yeah, Wes Craven's one of the greats. Rest in peace. Another New Line Cinema film that you were part of that I'm a big fan of is Detroit Rock City, as you played Mrs. Bruce.
Yep. That was New Line Cinema also,
Yep.
by the way. I had to audition my head off for it. Though. I mean, nothing was really, there were a couple parts Bob handed to me, which I didn't even know at certain points. But that one was, I remember going to audition for Tim Sullivan, who was the director and the writer. And I got the part. And it was just, to me, that's also one of my favorite movies I've ever done. It was kind of a perfect film of the time and about that time. And we shot it in Canada. Adam Rifkin, who was the director, is still a very good friend of mine and an extraordinary talent. And you never know, you never know if it's going to be good or it's not going to be. I remember Cameron Diaz saying to me when we did Something About Mary, it was that one scene where, those of you who have seen it, where Puffy gets thrown out the window. And I remember we were shooting the scene and Cameron looked at me and she said, "Do you think this is funny?" And I said, "I don't know." I just said, "I hope it's funny." So even while you're creating, you often don't know the result. And you shouldn't be thinking about that either, in my opinion. You think about the meat of what it is you're doing, because if you're not focused on that, it probably won't be funny. I mean, you have to find, at least that's how I feel. I mean, I'm sure you can look at results and try and aim for that result, and yeah, it'll be funny or whatever. But with Detroit Rock City, I don't think we knew the kind of audience we would attract and how successful it still is. People love, Mrs. Bruce was the classic, the classic mom. So I love her. I love the character. And Adam, as I said, is still a very good friend and a terrific filmmaker.
Something that I love about you and how you play your characters is that you always believe it. I believed it when you really burned the Kiss tickets. I could only imagine if my mom burned my Kiss tickets because I'm a Kiss fan. So
that's very fun. See? Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of relatable because my mom was very big into discipline, so and you played the role of a disciplinarian mother.
Yes, I did. Yes, a very strict religious disciplinary mother.
Yeah, well,
I
my
mean, it
mother's
was,
not that religious, but she's a disciplinarian.
but you know, what was interesting about for me too is that the comment about all that, you know, is very powerful and strong, and we make fun of it in one level, and yet we don't make fun. You know, we embrace it on another about the, and so there's kind of the reality and the comment of it sort of merge, and I think that's why the character is so successful. Everybody sort of sees the danger in this woman. You know, and listen, we got a lot of that going on right now, that kind of ultra conservative, you know, people who won't let in the truth of what's going on around them and live through some rules that somebody else taught them years ago. So I think it's in some ways it's still a timely film. You know, it's got elements in it that are still true.
Yeah. And that's a big thing in society where I think religion is really taken over, and then people say, oh, they shouldn't listen to this and don't believe that. And especially certain news outlets, like Fox News.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Listen, that's a whole nother can of worms. I don't think we should get into that tonight. But because it's very emotional, and I find that's what for me is going on in general, is that everything right now is so highly emotional that it's hard to even dissect everything in a really logical way. And Mrs. Bruce was definitely not a logical woman.
Oh, she loved the Times now, I think.
Oh, yes, she would. I know who she'd be voting for, and I'd throw her out of my house and rip that little coat off of her and push her in the dirt. It's like, sorry.
Did you get to see the performance at the end live when Kiss performed Detroit Rock City?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And they were great. And actually Gene Simmons and that whole gang, Ace and all of them, and Paul Stanley, they were very much a part of the show and very supportive. And Tim Sullivan, I mean, he was a big fan of theirs and really just reached out to them and said, would you do this? I mean, I'm not sure where Tim is right now. He's kind of got a very private personal life and sort of stays to himself. I adore him, may I say, and I think he's truly gifted and talented. I did I did 3 other films. I did a movie called Driftwood that he directed. And then of course I did the 2001 Maniacs movie, one with Robert Englund, one with Bill Moseley, that are still wildly successful. You know, and so he had his real, and it was because of him that Kiss got involved. I mean, he said, you want to come and will you do a concert for us? I mean, he really, I think there's a really interesting, something to be learned there is about always ask for what you want. Don't be afraid someone's going to say no, because you can often be really surprised. I mean, aghast. You ask the most ridiculous request. And you know, you're sure, you're never, ever, ever. And then someone says yes, and your life can change. So, you know, I mean, I'm not putting this in, not saying don't ask for really stupid, mean, awful things from people. But if you have a dream about something or a really good idea, especially a good idea, and you go, nobody's ever really going to care about that, or don't ever do that to yourself. Be a yes person, because it totally will happen. It more likely will happen than it won't happen. If you ask the right way, you still got to ask the right way, and you got to be passionate about it, and you got to, you know, still be thoughtful about the way you approach stuff. But that's what Tim did, and look what he got. Yeah.
It's a classic movie, in my opinion, and a lot of people like, especially Kiss fans. I know they love it.
Oh, of course they do. Knights in Satan's service.
Yeah. Before I get into Insidious and The Call, I want to touch on a film, The Running Man, that you were in, because that's a great film, in my opinion, and it was a novel written by Stephen King. What was it like working with Arnold Schwarzenegger in that film?
I didn't. I had
you didn't get to work with?
No, I didn't. I literally had one line in that movie. Paul Michael Glaser was the director. And I remember he gave me a line reading. God bless his soul, God, wherever he is. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. You know, I mean, I had one line. This is how he wanted it, so this is what he got. And it's a terrific film and
Yeah.
very timely. I mean, it's in some regard. So I never met Arnold. I think I actually did. I did. I just remember, or if I didn't actually meet him to talk to him, I did see him on set.
Mhm.
He's a very small guy. I mean, he's built, you know, like a brick, you know what house
Yeah.
shaft. I mean, and still is, but he's not a big man. He's not like a 6'2" giant. I don't, you know, but very imposing, really nice. I just remember that also. He was really approachable and available to people, and was really nice to the people he was around.
I'm surprised that he's not that tall. You look at these bodybuilding pictures from back in the day, you look like no one was ever taller than him. He was, it's the phenomenon of the world.
Truly. I mean, I always thought he was like 6'4", you know, like a real, but no, he was really not. He's a great guy. I mean, he's really aged well, and his political life has been very fascinating. And I don't know him at all, but I have great regard for him. I think he's a good person.
Yeah, I think he is too. Getting into 2001 Maniacs, what was it like working with Robert Englund? And I wanted to ask this question before. Did you see Robert Englund actually in the full makeup in the 1984 Nightmare on Elm Street in person?
You know, I don't remember, to be honest. I don't think I did, because I only, when I was in the first Nightmare, I was only there. I only worked one day as in that teacher's room, and he wasn't a part of the scene. It was just Heather Logenkamp, and so I never did really see him in person in that makeup. Robert's a great guy. I mean, he's also he's one of the smartest people, and I mean this sincerely, that I know. He is very alert to art and music and travel and wines and food, and he's really an encyclopedia of life. I mean, he's a brilliant guy and a wonderful actor. I mean, Freddie is Freddie, but he brought all that sardonic humor to it. It wasn't really written like that. And so he really did create that character, you know, that sort of, and put the twist on the humor. And it changed his life. I mean, his life is still totally wrapped up in that whole thing. It's a phenomena, a worldwide phenomena. He's great. I love Robert.
Yeah, I do too. He's definitely a legend as well. Getting the role of Insidious, how did you get the role originally, and what did you love most about it?
I got the role originally. Tim Sullivan, again. Tim, if you're listening, or if your ears should be burning, I want to talk to you. Tim Sullivan and James Wan were not really friends. They were acquaintances. I don't think they were really friends, but and I don't know how they happened to be together this one evening, but Tim was invited. I had invited Tim over I was having just a small bunch of friends over, and he brought James. And James wanted to meet me because of Dead End, which is a little movie I did in 2003, I think, with Ray Wise and Alexandra Holden, a terrific, it's coming up, a little Christmas movie. And James loved that film, and which never got a theatrical release, by the way. Isn't that crazy? And
Really?
It's still a popular film. But anyway, so Tim brought him over, and we met, and James was really sweet. He had not done any, the last things he had done was the whole Saw, you know, legacy, whatever you want to, there were 8 of them. And I gave him a copy. I had a DVD of Dead End, so I gave it to him, and we just talked for maybe 5 minutes or whatever, and that was it. And a few weeks later, he called me and he said, I'm doing a video that's going to be a prequel to an Xbox release, if you can imagine how crazy that is. It's called Doggy Heaven. It's about 9 minutes long. My partner, Lee Winnell, who I'd never met, is going to star in it. And there's this character who has a dog named Miss Marple. And I think you'd be great to play, you'd be great as the part. Would you like to do it? So I said, sure. I mean, I said, yeah, that sounds really fun. And we created this very funny character. It's still on iTunes, I think, called Doggy Heaven. It's very funny, by the way. And the storyline sort of is Lee Winnell plays this sort of jerky guy who's trying to pick up girls, and he ends up getting into a car wreck. And my character, he offends my dog and me, and I end up pulling a gun out of my purse and shooting him, and he dies. But a mistake gets made, and he gets sent to dog heaven instead of people heaven, and it's hilarious. I mean, it's really funny, and Lee is totally brilliant. I mean, he's really something else. Actor, writer, director, every dad, husband. He's a great person. So we shot it. I think it was either 1 or 2 days. And that was it. I said, thank you, and blah, blah, blah. And there was very little, I didn't see it for a long time. And then I guess a month or so later, James called and said, I have a script that Lee and I, my partner, we're trying to get done. We don't have a name for it yet. There's a role of a psychic that I thought you'd be really good in. He said, can I send you the script? So I said, sure. So I was excited to read it, of course. And I read it in bed. It was late. It was like 1 or so. And there was something about it that really scared me. And I'm not a real scared person. I mean, I kind of believe in everything. So there's not like I'm just not. I'm not scared of stuff that much. I'm scared of people, but not ghosts and stuff like that. I've made amends with all of them up there. So anyway, but it was so creepy. I put it downstairs at the closet. I didn't sleep with it. I didn't want to I put it by my bed, and I thought, I'm going to take it downstairs. And so I called James. I said, yeah, I would love to do it. And he said, well, I've got an offer out to Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson, and so we'll see what happens. Literally the next day he called me. He said they both accepted the offers. They loved the material, and we're going to shoot. So that was how I got it. And we actually shot it here in LA. It was for 3 weeks. It was $800,000, a very small budget for a film. And there's a funny little story about we had honey wagons. None of us had big fancy trailers. We had the little honey wagons with the smelly bathrooms on each end. And we had one security guard, and it was a small cast. I mean, it was Rose, and there were like 6 or 7 of us, I think, is all. And so our honey wagons were lined up on this little street, and the security guard was there, and there was some guy that kept walking back and forth in front of the trailers. And I went to security and I said, keep an eye on this guy. I said, he's always walking around. He's got his head down on his phone, and he's kind of just keeps marching down, back and forth. So he said, okay, I'll keep my eye on him. So that day we sat down at lunch, and I look up, and there's the guy sitting across from me. It was Jason Blum. So my story is I almost had Jason arrested. It was like, and so that was the beginning. That was how it started. And I remember James saying, maybe we shouldn't kill you at the end, because what if there's a sequel? And I said, whatever, don't worry about it now. I said, let's just make the movie. And then, of course, the character became very popular. And people ask me, why do you think she was so popular? Or why is she so popular? And I'm not sure I understand 100%. The only thing I could come up with is that Elise is a real giver. She's one of the few characters I've ever played that has no agenda other than other people and helping them. And I mean, for true, that's just who she is and why she's here. Yeah. And that doesn't really exist in our real life anymore. We're a world of takers. Me, iPhone, nah. Everybody's, if it's not for me, I'm not. And that she's exactly different than that. And that there be some appeal, which is a good thing, that maybe we could learn a little something from Elise. Me too, that there's some quality that she embodies both from the story and I guess from me as an actress, of the way there's a purity to her that's not corny and not goody-goody. She's not a goody-goody. She's just a really straight, honest human being who takes on life as it comes to her and everything that comes to her. So anyway, that may have been a question you had because people have asked that a lot of what did I think her popularity is. I love the character. So
Yeah, I do too. I think the most effective scene in the movie to me is when your character looks up to the ceiling and it's
yeah,
just like, what do you see? Because what the scariest thing in horror movies is what you don't see.
that was the first day of shooting that
Really?
scene. And I remember because, which is always a scary day for everybody. And I remember James, we knew, I mean, and I remember because there's no dialogue written. And I remember there's a thing about where I'm sort of talking about what I'm seeing. And I remember James, the one note he gave me is he said, he has hooves. And so I say that, and it even gives me chills when I say it. There was something, it was just a wonderful moment on camera. Yeah, I'm very proud of that, actually.
Is that your favorite scene throughout the Insidious films?
I never really thought about that. There's so much stuff later, too. That first film, I think that's one of my favorite. The entrance also, that was the one thing, the very first time you meet Elise, which is probably 2/3 into the film almost, the first
Yeah.
one. You don't meet her till into the movie. Where I said to James, when I come to the door, I ring the doorbell and I knock. And I said, I want to do both because she's not sure if the doorbell works. And I thought that's so, I said, I thought that was perfect because she's a psychic, but she doesn't know if the doorbell works. She doesn't, she's not that kind of psychic.
Yeah.
She doesn't know if you're okay or not. She only knows her expanse is much wider and more profound than that, so that's one of my favorite entrances I've ever had in a film. That coming through the door where he opens the door and I kind of fall in, and she's not at all what you expect. She's not the, I never, I played her just like this sweet woman kind of who I had. I'm kind of talking a lot here, so tell me to be quiet if I should.
No,
But
that's fine. You're explaining everything. It's perfect.
well, this brings up another story too of oh, now I lost my train of thought. When I lost my train of, never mind. Ask me a question. Now I'm gone.
The Bride in Black. What was like the first time you saw the reveal, the Bride in Black? Did they keep the actor that played the Bride in Black hidden? Because I know sometimes in horror movies they'll keep the evil character hidden away from the cast so that you get a real reaction out of them.
I don't think so. I mean, I can't remember the actor's name. A wonderful guy who plays the Bride in Black is played by a guy. I don't think so. I think I didn't see him because he wasn't around. I mean, he's in the first movie when he appears. It's not like he was on set every day or anything where I had to be separate from him. So I don't recall if I ever really saw him before the scene. I probably did, to be honest. So you pretend.
Yeah.
So you pretend you never saw it before. The choking thing in the first film was very scary. That was a little bit scary. Patrick really went for it. I had black and blue marks all around my neck. Because he wasn't choking me, because as an actor, what you do is you hit instead of here, which will really kill you if you keep choking, but you kind of put your hand, you put the pressure more behind the neck, and there's a way they describe it as I sell it. He's not really doing that much, but I'm selling it by what I'm doing with my head and the way I'm vocally, the way I'm choking. So he's really not doing that much, but Patrick, in the heat of the moment, you get a little over, your adrenaline takes over too. And he wasn't around my neck, but he was really pressing hard. And I remember the next day, I literally had like pearls of bruises, like all around my neck where his fingers were. But he didn't hurt. It didn't. It hurt. Actually, it's a little scary, because it's still very jarring. And he put his foot up on the chair to get more leverage. I remember he's terrific. I mean, Patrick is, I hope to work with him again someday. I just think he's extraordinary and one of the nicest people ever, and so prepared and asks such great actors questions about the story, about what's missing. He's really a fantastic actor. So that was a treat to work with him, and Rose too, who's hilarious, by the way.
What
Just
do
a
you think's the
sweetheart.
scariest scene in the Insidious franchise?
Oh,
4
brother.
films.
Yikes. I gotta say, some of the stuff with Keyface in the last one, that was scary.
Yeah.
There was something very scary about this wonderful Spanish actor, Javier Bote is his name, who's really like 6'7". He's a giant of a person, and he has this disorder, which made his limbs. He's also in. He's in a couple other films of James's actually. I think he's in The Conjuring or The Conjuring 2. It's one of them where he plays the stick man. But he's really this long, very bony. He has a very tiny stomach, apparently. I mean, it's partly a birth defect. Funny, smart, handsome. I mean, if you saw I couldn't believe because I never saw him out of makeup because the makeup took forever. I mean, that makeup for Keyface took forever. Yeah. And when I saw him, I mean, really, like drop dead handsome and tall, still this sort of very lanky, kind of crazy body, but which is so expressive and full of good humor. He's very funny and very, very bright. And, but that scene where he's trying to kill me in the fourth one, that was really scary. He scared me a little bit. He really did. And he couldn't, and he was very in control as an actor, which is a key for something like that. Pardon the expression. Keyface has a key. But it really is what you have to understand too, if you're not an actor, is that if this pretend business, you got to be in 100% control because you really can hurt somebody. And actors say, I got to make it, I got to really smack you. No, you don't. You do, it's like the other actor who takes the hit. A good stage slap is amazing because there's a way to do it, and usually have a stunt person showing you how to make it work. But you never ever are out of control. Yeah. If you're out of control, you're offset, in my opinion. Yeah. Doesn't make you a good actor. Makes you a stupid actor.
I remember a great example of that would be in Jaws. I know in the slap scene with Roy Scheider, I know he was really getting slapped in that scene.
You really don't have to, honest to God. I mean, it's almost better. You can make it even look more horrifying. It's pretend. I mean, you still have to make it look as real as possible, but there's all kinds of ways. I mean, that's why you have a stunt coordinator. Yep. You really should not hurt each other. You should not get hurt. You do get hurt some of the time. I remember once on stage when I was talking about stage at the Manhattan Theater Club when I was in New York. I was in a two-person play with this actor, and he hit me. He almost broke my jaw. Because he didn't, the thing is they do the hit and you do the throw. So it looks like the way it's positioned and also the way you're positioned, it looks like you're really being slugged. And his time, and you have to have timing, and you got to both be on the same page with the timing. And he wasn't, and he literally, I saw stars. I thought he broke my jaw, and my jaw was sort of dislocated for about a week. Yeah, it was awful. So, nothing is, in my opinion, nothing's worth getting hurt for. I don't care how, because it doesn't make it look better. It just makes you look stupid as an actor that you can't figure out how to do it correctly, so.
Doing Insidious, did that make you believe in ghosts, or did you believe in the supernatural before then, if so?
I believe in everything because I think we don't know anything about anything. I think we make up stories to appease our own curiosity. But I mean, we've all had, I don't know a person who hasn't had some kind of an experience they can chalk up to being, I just don't know what that was, or what I saw, or I'm telling you there was someone there, or, so who knows? I don't think it made me think about it particularly one way or the other. I'm a believer in acceptance, that I think if there's evil, I mean, we know there's evil. I won't get into that, but
Yeah, I think he's in the White
we
House.
already got that one going. We're going to do the best we can. And evil is it's contagious, and
Yeah.
because it's very attractive to a lot of people who are stifled in other ways. There's something very appealing about it gives you a sense of control and power to be evil. I don't know why that is 100%, but so I don't think so as I say, I think I believe in everything. So it didn't make me believe more one way or the other. I was in another film. It was actually a Tim Sullivan thing. I can't remember what, we were in a church and the cross was upside down, or I don't know, something. Whatever. Somebody turned it up, so somebody turned it upside down, to scare us or to do whatever. But I'm not so fearful of the unknown. I feel I've kind of made friends with it in some internal way that is my sense of safety.
Did you notice any strange occurrences on the set with Insidious, or either when you were back home? Because I know in certain movies, especially with paranormal, Poltergeist, there were a lot of issues surrounding that. The Omen, The Exorcist, even The Conjuring, that was one of James' films as well. Was there any strange occurrences?
Not for me. There really wasn't. I mean, I'd love to say, oh yes, that and they visited me. No, I really didn't. Also, Elise got her shit together.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really is a sort of like, kind of tipping your hat to everything that's out there. I mean, I definitely believe in evil. I really do. I think I don't know what creates that, if it that's or if anything does create it, but I think certainly people behave in evil manners. Are people possessed? I think probably that's a real thing. But whether that does that come from the inner, from the out? Does it come from the outside, or is it from the inside? Fear, I think, is a very dangerous emotion. I think that opens you up to all kinds of negativity.
Yeah.
So whether it be the negativity of a spirit or just of thought, which can make you behave in a certain way, I think a lot is in our own control of the way we witness things and the way we react to things, and who we listen to and what we listen to. And I think paying close attention to your own source, your own, whether you could say it's your heart or your mind or both, things that having good intentions is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
And I think is very protecting. I think it can protect you in some ways too. When you see, because it's all out there. I mean, you can, it's like looking at that painting where you see one thing, I see another. It all comes from you on some level, and that the way the outside affects you is the way you feel about yourself inside.
How did it feel to be crowned the Godmother of horror? How did it feel?
I mean, it's fun. It's great. I mean, I'm grateful to have this fan base, which truly on some level is a surprise to me. Because it's not what I set out to do, or it's nothing I went after or tried to make happen or I hoped for. I think also a real ticket and an important thing to remember is tell the truth. It's gonna make me cry because we get so far away from that because of the exterior world demanding things of us. And I think that old expression is like Anne Frank, we are all good at heart. I think there's black hearts. Now, whether that comes from you get born like that or you be turned into that I have no idea. I don't have any idea. But I think that, and even I'm very skeptical. Does love win and does goodness prevail? I don't know, and I'm not sure. I really, I'm not sure. I mean, there's times the evil wins. I mean, end of story. And I think good judgment is very important. Using your mind also. How do you want to feel? You can also you can change the way you feel by how you behave. It's a real collaboration. It's not just, your insides making you act one way and your outside's doing something different. I think it's important to use your mind for goodness in a way. And being a sort of an icon of horror, whatever that means, I think fear, it amplifies fear, and seeing fear in an entertainment, in the vein of entertainment, is one of the reasons people like it, is because it gives you a sense of that it's outside of you. It's not just inside you. So whatever that is, the characters that I've gotten, because the characters I played have not been evil. This movie, The Call.
The Call, yeah. I wanted to get into that, and how was it playing an evil character?
It was fun. But again, Edith she's not an evil person, but yeah. she's been damaged. And I often think that kind of evil, when people do bad things, it's because they've been damaged. And sometimes that damage is out of our control. I see The Call more as a story. It's really a story about bullying and about
revenge.
And revenge, yeah. But revenge because she's been so damaged. Because that's not who she is. She's not an evil person.
Yeah. But
she's had it. And I think that people have a threshold. In real life, they have a threshold of how much they can take. So it was really fun. Timothy Woodward Jr. too is a terrific director and really interesting man. And it was I actually loved working with it. And Tobin Bell, that was a real treat for me too, because I've known his work for years. We had never met.
And this is the first time you guys worked together.
Yeah, and I'd never met him. I mean, I had only, I knew he worked, and that we were both James Wan, Lee Winnell, babies. We were birthed by them. So we're sort of soulmates on that level. So I always do try to look for the truth of the character. I don't ever think about genre so much, even if it's comedy, or like, what is this person? What's driving this person? Those are basic acting skills too, for young actors who are out there listening to this or whatever. You should really study, really find there's a great book by Uta Hagen, who was one of my most important teachers. It's called Respect for Actors. Read it. It's a real textbook in the purest sense of ways to create what you want to create. And it's fun. It's not just saying lines with a certain, I want to be happy, I'm going to say a happy line. That has nothing to do with acting. Nothing. And creating these characters has really been, has just been a real treat for me too, to the opportunities I've had.
Who did the makeup for The Call? Because I'm a big studier of what Rick Baker's done, Greg Nicotero. Who did the makeup for this movie?
Ching, and I can't pronounce her last name. I'm a bad girl. I should have looked it up and written. She is this beautiful, beautiful young woman who did all of it. She did my makeup. She did the horror makeup, which I thought was really fantastic. I remember she had this brush that was like a needle. It was so thin, and doing veins. It took her forever. I was like, "Are you done yet?" Like, when are you almost done now? It was a couple hours, 2-3 hours to do that makeup. But she was just great. So please check her last name so you can, if you're gonna write it anywhere. She just is fantastic. And apparently she's done all Timothy Woodward's films. And Pablo Diaz, who's his DP, who's also brilliant, is also a Timothy Woodward Jr.
Yeah.
Slut. we're meaning that in the best sense possible. We are all sluts when it comes to making a movie. We're all in it together.
Now, despite everything that happened with COVID-19, it's just a shame that people really just couldn't go out. This is in theaters right now, right?
Yeah, it is. I saw it at a drive-in in Industry City. We drove when it opened. It's going to be released on a wider format. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this now, but we're getting so close.
Yeah, the end of the month. I know your manager told me that.
Yeah, August, not August. What month is this? What
Oh,
year is this?
October, yeah.
October 30th. I think it's going to be released on all the formats. So it's really, I think, it's a powerful little film. And all the actors, I think, do a great job. And again, Timothy and Pablo and Ching.
Yeah.
She's the way I used to remember her name, because I'm terrible with names. I'm just awful. I mean, so I used to think, cha-ching, money. Don't tell her I said that. Now she knows.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing The Call. I hope everyone goes out and sees it. It's going to be a great movie for people that haven't seen it already. I'm a huge horror fan, as everyone knows. I want to get into, because this relates to my show, because I do a lot of hip hop on my show, Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror.
Oh my God. Well, my favorite memory of that was Snoop Dogg, who is just the best. I mean, I follow him on whatever it is, Instagram or something, and I often repost. His posts are so great. I just remember we could smell the bus coming. And I think I met him just very briefly, just to sort of say hey. And then I did another film called Grow House that DJ Pooh directed, and
Oh,
he's a
yeah.
friend of DJ. So we I hope it's DJ. I hope I got that. As I said, forgive me if I got.
Yeah, it's
DJ Pooh.
yeah. I think I've heard him called MC Pooh too. I know he was in Friday.
Yeah, but it's not MC for sure. I think it's DJ.
I think it is DJ. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's DJ.
And he's it's this whole gang of, they're all just the crazy, wonderful people, and great filmmakers, I thought too. So I think he was around, or he came. He was around that set just for a day or something. And he has a cameo in it. I think it's called Grow House. I have a very funny role in it, by the way. So I can't remember her name, but you won't forget her. That's for sure. But when we did Hood of Horror, Stacy Title, who is a beautiful, beautiful director, who's been very ill, and who it's heartbreaking because I love her, and she was just fantastic to work with. And it's just out there. I send her my love and good health for somewhere, sometime soon.
Yeah.
But he really does have his entourage and his gang, and he's the sweetest guy. I mean, just really kind, very, very smart, very soft-spoken, very a big heart. I know him very little, but that was my impression of him. And he fulfills that. I think when he carries that with him. He's a tall, very lanky, but really beautiful man, and real elegant person in every way.
Looking back on your entire film career, what was the most challenging role, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a big question. You know what? This is going to sound crazy. I was just in the new Penny Dreadful.
Yeah, that's right.
That was, I think, the most challenging role I've ever had, for a lot of different reasons. I haven't done that much television, so that in itself was a challenge, because even though it was Showtime, and by the way, it's a fantastic series. It's 10 episodes. It's about Los Angeles, 1938, and it's about Nazism. It's kind of about what's going on in our country right now. And it's Nathan Lane and Natalie Dormer from Game of Thrones. Beautiful cast. Brad Gareth is in it. And I play this character named Dottie Minter, who's how can you describe her? She's a Nazi hunter, basically. And Nathan Lane and I are partners. And it was a very strong character part, especially also just period piece, because it was 1938. And I was a recurring on the show, so I'm in 6 of the 10 episodes. Television is very scary for me. It's just, I don't feel at home in it. It's very, and this particular was big machinery. I mean, each episode was like probably $10 million. I mean, hundreds of people, hundreds of wardrobe and extras, and it was shot. They created LA 1938 in Santa Clarita at a studio, the old Hopalong Cassidy studio, I think it is. It's either Roy Rogers or Hopalong Cassidy, I forget which one. But and what was scary to me was I didn't feel, even though I was a recurring character, I didn't really feel a part of the machinery. And everything moved so fast around you, and everyone was wonderful. I mean, they were totally welcoming and were very complimentary to what I was doing. I was scared to death. Really scary for
Really?
me. Yeah, it was really scary. It was scary to come on set because I never felt like I was part of the party in a way, even though I was, but you know, in terms of I'm revealing, you know, this is kind of a vulnerable thing to reveal in a way. John Logan, who is the creator, is the most extraordinary man for me that I've almost ever met in the business. He and Nathan Lane to me are like royalty. And so I always had that, and that's not how they behave. I mean, John was at every minute, at the camera, at the actor, loving, giving, the most fantastic group of people. But I always kind of felt like I had to hold on to myself. It was scary because it wasn't, I never felt in the pocket. And for me, that was very unusual because usually in the films I've been able to do, I guess it's also people look to me, you know, because I'm not John Logan. You know, I don't have that kind of a, I mean, these people are geniuses, and I'm not just saying that lightly. When you look at the body of work Nathan Lane has done, I mean, I was in awe of him. I mean, all I did was try to be quiet. It was like, and I don't shut up. So for me, that was also a challenge. But I honestly think that was, of all the work I've done, that was one of the scariest, and yet it came out absolutely great. It was beautiful. I'm proud of the work I did. It totally did everything I was supposed to as the character. People loved the character. There was going to be a second series, a second year that I know I was going to be a part of, with Nathan,
Mhm.
and who, by the way, is just, you know, I mean, he's Nathan Lane. I mean, what else can you say? You know, I'd listened to him and Brad Garrett talk about Lunch with Frank Sinatra, and I mean, how do you not go, okay, you know, where's my dog? You know, like, and so it really made me feel it. I should say it put me in my place because I recognized my own value, you know, but it definitely made me aware of my place, you know, of sort of the world of giants that entertainment and the film business, and it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So so being in the presence of that kind of royalty was very daunting to me.
Mhm.
So I'd never had that experience before.
What role are you most proud of? I know the Insidious role is iconic for you. That you often praise the role that you had in The Kingpin with Woody Harrelson. I've heard you praise that role. What's a role that you're most proud of?
I think Kingpin,
Yeah.
because I created every single cell of that character, and they didn't want to see me for it. And I fought tooth and nail to, they didn't want to, they just kept saying, we love your work, but she's described as the angriest, ugliest woman God ever let loose on the planet. I'll never forget that description as long as I live. And I thought, as an actress, I have to do this. And I had done Dumb and Dumber, which was from my brother, Bob, who said, put my sister in your movie. So that's how I got that part. I'm sure, you know, some of the stuff is very private in a way that I'm sharing with you, but I'm hoping it's useful. Even the story about Penny Dreadful,
Yeah.
you know, I guess the final thing to say about that is the moral of the story is it's okay to be afraid because it makes you vulnerable and maybe more alive even than you think, and that you'll get through it and you'll do great. That's what I learned. I did great, but I went through a different tunnel than I'd ever been through before. And in something like Kingpin, I was so sure of myself with this, and that I knew I knew exactly how she was supposed to look and everything about her. And finally, one of the producers gave me the opportunity. The door was closing. I wrote letters to everybody. I'm a big letter writer. I'm also a big And they just said, we like your work, we love your work, but you're just not right for this. And I said, finally, I put together a whole presentation. That outfit I bought on Melrose Avenue at a store called Aardvarks. It was a vintage clothing store. The hair, the bad teeth, the nails, the smoking was all my idea, the whole thing. And I dressed up as Mrs. Dumars when I finally got the opportunity, and scared the parking lot attendants. When I got, seriously, it was because I was so intent on getting in the room to the audition, and this guy, literally, I got out of my car and he flung himself against a wall. I mean, it was like, what is that just got out of that car? And and the fact that it's a perfectly written role. There's 4 scenes, I think, and there's the introduction, she falls in love, the betrayal, and the revenge. So it's like a perfectly constructed character. And it still really cracks me up. I mean, Woody was so great to work with. I was so scared of him. I was as scared of him as I was of Nathan Lane. But my interaction with Woody was very different. I mean, Woody was very he was really gung-ho. I was so scared to meet him because he is a big movie star, you know, and I was literally nobody, you know. I mean, I was just I had not done anything close to what he had achieved. And he just got down in there with the scene. We ran together on the sidewalk, you know, in place to get our heartbeat up. And he was just great to work with, and loved what I did, and really contributed to it in a way that made the scenes really work. So that's my favorite thing.
Being the godmother of horror, what's your top 5 horror movies of all time?
Oh man, Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum, which if you've never seen it, it's just, and Shelley Winters, I think it's in the 50s. It's from the 50s. Robert Mitchum is one of the scariest characters. He plays a minister. That's one of the scariest roles I've ever seen for me. Of course, The Shining.
Yeah.
And Hitchcock, The Birds, you know, Birds, Psycho. So those would be, Psycho, The Birds, Night of the Hunter, The Shining. There's probably some recent, trying to think what really scares me. It's interesting what's scary to me, because it's not always the typical thing. You know, it's not, those are the 4 I think of right off the top of my head. There's lots of great movies, lots of great scary movies.
There's tons of them.
Yeah.
How was your birthday? Before I let you go, how was your birthday? It was a couple days ago.
Thank you for remembering.
Yeah, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was sort of depressing.
Yeah, because you have to celebrate it in quarantine.
But I ended up yesterday, actually. My son I have a wonderful son who's a writer and a musician, and he lives here in LA. So we went over to my brother's, to Bob's house, and they made potato pancakes with caviar, which was pretty fabulous. My brother's just fantastic chef. I mean, no joke. I mean, really spectacular cook.
Wow.
So he made, that's one of our favorites. And so we had potato pancake. And then Bob said, so if anybody wants a steak, and I don't eat meat pretty much. I mean, and my son said, yeah, I'll have a steak. So Bob grilled this beautiful piece of meat that I had some of, and it really was, it was delicious. You know, it was, because this was top, they don't fool around. I mean, it's top of the top of the top. So, you know, if you were going to eat a piece of meat, it was definitely the best you could get, kind of. And Bob is very, you know, he likes the best you can get. That's how he lives. And he's a very elegant guy, and their home is beautiful. And I have a little dog, and they have a little dog. And so I brought the dog. So yesterday was really my birthday, and we had a key lime pie cake for dessert with birthday on it. We sang happy birthday. And so all in all, what also this sort of amplifies this whole time is about good health and goodwill. It's really important.
Yeah.
Really important. And I think, you know, it's as I said when we started the interview, I think we've all been altered by this in some ways, and probably some in good ways and some in not such great ways. But value what we have to value, which really starts with your health. I you know, that's, and I always say I want to live long and well, but you know, I've got to be healthy till the day I drop dead. I cannot do that other thing.
Yeah.
Best I can do it, not to do that other thing. So, and yet, you know, we're made of tenacity, and we all, if God forbid something happens, you just work through it. That's what we're made of, you know. So anyway, I'm wishing us all good health, and
Yeah.
this was a fun interview. It's fun to talk about the past and the fun things I've loved in my life, and hope I shed a little education.
Oh yeah, to all the students up at St.
My
John's right
wisdom,
now.
my
Yeah.
wisdom. And you know, it's important. Again, a lot of actors probably wouldn't have divulged their feelings that I had on Penny Dreadful, but especially because you guys are students.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It doesn't make me feel weak to feel that way. It makes me feel quite the opposite, that it's okay to embrace all your fear as well, and to figure it through. You know, you sort of can work through it. And again, for me, the final result was really totally positive, and I learned something. And I'm sorry that next season's not going, because I was ready to go. Now I was ready to, you know, to feel comfortable in my skin and with the experience of what I was going to create. So don't be afraid to be afraid.
Yep, that's an important message. Before I let you go, what's something else that you want to achieve in your career? You've achieved so much already. Is there something else that you want to pursue? I think I've heard you say you want to pursue play in theater, I think, right?
I mean, I don't know. You know, to go back to theater, I have no plan. I really don't have a plan. I I find myself, even especially during this pandemic, like you wake up in the morning and there's nothing you have to go do. I mean, especially because my kids are grown, you know, my son's grown, I have pets to take care of, you know, whatever, my household stuff. But all of a sudden I find myself, whatever it is, you know, in my yard, and like crazy gardening, or writing something I had no intention to write, or and surprising myself with the tenacity and the drive and the commitment I can make to something I never even thought I was going to be doing. So I can't really answer that question. There's a little movie I wanted to mention too called Room for Rent, and I think it's still on Amazon Prime. That's one of my favorite things I've ever done, and I was one of the producers, and it's my film. It's the characters about this woman. It's her decline into insanity, basically. It's a beautiful sort of psychological study of this character, and I'm very proud of it, because again, it was something that I didn't even know I was gonna, you know, it was kind of along the line of what we're saying. And we had 3 weeks and we shot it, and it's for hardly any money. I mean, it was really a low budget film. But if you are interested in seeing sort of a little portrait that I created, sort of not knowing that was what was going to happen, is kind of in line of what we're talking about. Check it out. It's an hour and 20 minutes, I think. Room for Rent. And so to go back to the question, I hope for good things. You know, I hope I keep being creative. We'll see. We'll see what unfolds. I mean, I don't have a project. I actually wrote, I'm not sure if it was a film or a play. I kept trying to sort of figure out if I was going to do it. I kind of stalls, and then I pick it up again. Maybe someday that'll get produced. You know, it'll either be a small film but my passion right now is expression, not just as an actress, too, in other ways in my life. My home is very important to me. The things around me, I'm very involved. Design is very important to me, the way things are placed. I'm like that as an actor, too.
Yeah.
But always feel free to surprise yourself. Don't make too many plans. know kind of where you're going, find the tube, and then let it sort of see where it's going to take you.
Yeah. Lin Shaye, it's been an honor here tonight for coming on my show here for an interview. I had a great time. I'm looking forward to seeing The Call, and I'm sure everyone else up here is looking forward to it, especially the horror fans that we have. Is there anything else you'd love to tell my audience?
Just kind of those little moments I kind of ended up saying about, don't be afraid to be afraid. Don't be afraid to move forward. Don't be afraid to move sideways. Don't even be afraid to move backwards. Just keep in motion. Keep learning from all your motion and all your movements. Express yourself fully. Always be kind to other people. That's really important. Even when you're not feeling it, it has such resonance to abuse someone in any way whatsoever. That, and especially now, really important. I find myself, I'm not so nice some of the time. And I really mean that. Like sometimes, and I find myself really reaching out and to people in a way I have never really done before. And I think that's one useful thing of this pandemic is teaching us about ourselves and how we really are alone. So reach out, be kind, be creative, be unafraid, and don't be afraid to be afraid.
And there you have it. I want everyone to follow Lin Shaye on Instagram at Miss Lin Shaye and Twitter at Lin Shaye.
Yep. Thank you so much. This was really fun for me today, too. I really appreciate it. And love to all you guys. You know, keep learning, too. You're never through learning.
No.
Ever, ever, ever. Okay.
Not at all. Thank you, Lin Shaye. I appreciate it. Look forward to see what you do for the rest of your career. I'd love to have you back on as soon as you have another film that you love to promote.
Totally. I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lin. Have a great night and stay safe.
You too.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.